What's going on, everybody? CyberOptek here with video number 2 in our video series on learning Inkscape. Now, in the last video, I kind of went over with you some of the basic tools inside the program just to kind of get you familiar with it. But in this video, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the nodes tool. I'm going to teach you a little bit about nodes, how to use them, where they are very useful. And then I also want to teach you about a really cool tool inside of Inkscape called the set clip tool. It's very useful. I use it in a lot of my projects. So that's what this video is going to be about. So anyways, let's go. So the first point that I kind of want to make in this video has to do with a problem that you will run into whenever you make objects and you decide to go back and try to edit it with your nodes tool. Now, there are a couple different ways to make objects inside of Inkscape. You can either use your pencil tool right here and draw it out, or you can use one of these object tools that are located up here in your menu. However, there is a difference when you use these and you use this one, and then you go back and use your nodes tool. So I'll explain that as we go. So first things first, I just want to come in here and draw a very simple box, like so. Now that I have my box drawn, if I go in here to my nodes tool and I grab one of these lines, you can see that I can kind of move this around and I can make whatever shape that I want by just adjusting these lines and using the nodes tool. However, if I drew my box using this tool right here, then went to my nodes tool, you'll notice that I can't actually adjust this object. So there's a very easy fix to this. If you go up here and you select this object, then go right here under path, you'll notice an option for object to path. If you click on this, then go back to your nodes tool, you'll notice that now I can actually come in here and adjust this object. So that's just something I wanted to kind of make you aware of. If you do use one of these tools and you want to edit it with your nodes tool, you will have to go up here and set the object to path. So now that I've gotten that first part out of the way, let's talk about what nodes are used for. There are going to be times inside your projects where you want to draw very intricate shapes of your own. They're not just going to be basic squares or basic circles or anything like that. And that's where nodes come in. They allow you to come in here and draw very complex shapes and then go back and edit them as you wish. So as you can see, I've drawn out this little complex shape. But this looks a little weird. I want to bring this corner in and be more aligned here in the center. So what I can do is grab my nodes tool and see I can kind of move these around to get them to the shape that I want. So that's really what these do, is they allow you to come in here and create very complex shapes. Now, as I showed you in the first video, you can also grab these lines and kind of move them around to round them out. This allows you to get rounded shapes, to get a little bit more intricate with your design and just kind of change up the way it looks. Now, you'll notice if you click on one of these nodes after you've rounded out these lines, you'll get these little bars with little circles on the end of them. And what these do is these allow you to actually go in and fine tune your curves. So maybe we want this to be a little bit more drastic and round around and come directly into that line. Maybe we want this one to kind of come inward a little bit. You know, the possibilities are really endless. You can use these little bars and kind of move your design around and get it to where you want it. Now, let's say that you don't like this curve. You want to go back to your original design again. All you have to do is grab these circles, kind of move them until they kind of snap into the center of your node, and then it gets rid of those curves. So that's just a basic overview of how to use these. We will get into more complex things as we move through our project, but really the purpose in this video was just to kind of introduce you to nodes and let you see all the different options that you can do using them. The next thing that I want to cover in this video is adding and deleting nodes to your project. So again, let's just draw out a design. Doesn't really matter what it is, just something very simple. Control Z to go backwards if you make a mistake. And now that I have this, let's say that I want to go in and add a node right here in the middle of this line. Well, there's a couple different ways that you can do this. I can either kind of tap right here on this line and go right up here to the top left corner and hit this plus sign. And as you can see, it adds a node to my project. Same thing reversely. If I want to get rid of it, I can just click on that node, go right here to this minus button and hit it, and then it gets rid of it. Now, sometimes when you create a node and you get rid of it, it will add these bars back to these nodes. You can just kind of go in here and kind of snap these back, and that'll get rid of those. But there is an easier way to add and delete nodes. You don't necessarily have to always go up here to the top. If you want a node right here in the middle of the line, all you simply have to do is just double click on it and it will actually add your node for you. This is just a little bit easier and quicker way. And of course, you can be a little bit more precise with it because wherever I put this pointer is where it's going to add the node. So if I want a node in a specific area, that just makes it a little bit easier. Then when I want to delete this node, all I have to do is hit my backspace and it's gone. Now, again, you can see that when I deleted it, it added these little bars. You just move these back to the center and you're back to square one again. So that's basically how you go about adding and subtracting nodes. The next thing that I want to cover in this video is connecting nodes together because there are going to be times when this is necessary. So to explain this, let's start off with just having a straight line. Now I want to create an angle off of this straight line. Well, obviously I can go here, I can click and I can draw out my angle. But when I do that, this line is actually going to be connected to that one. And I don't want to do that because I want this one to be separate. And I'll explain that here in just a second. So with my snapping tool on, I'm going to go down here, I'm going to grab my pencil and I'm going to draw the angle that I want. Now I have this perfect angle. This is the angle that I wanted, but obviously these are two separate pieces. Now that these are two separate pieces, I can copy and paste only this angle. So I'm going to hit Control C and Control V to copy and paste, bring it over here to this corner, and now I have a perfect angle on both sides without having to pull guides down and measure it out. The problem is that now all of these are three separate objects. And if I was to connect it at this corner and tried to fill it in, it actually would not fill in because these corners are not connected. So to connect them together, what you want to do is grab your nodes tool and select your first line, hold down Shift and select your second line, then just kind of hold down your left button and scroll across the corner that you want to connect to select both the node on this line and go right here in the top to join selected nodes. When I click on that, you'll see that this is now one solid piece. Now we can do the same thing on the other side. Go to our nodes tool, select the first line, hold down Shift, select the second line, scroll over that corner to make sure we have selected both the node on this line, and hit this button again. And now you can see that this is one solid piece. So this is a very useful tool, especially if you're creating angles and you want the angle to be the same on both sides. You want to be able to copy only that angle and not both lines together. And so there are going to be times where you want lines to be separated and then you want to go back and you want to join them together later. Another time when you're going to find nodes very useful is, let's say I want to fill in this object. Sometimes whenever you use a fill on an object, if you scroll in here real close, you'll notice that you have a little bit of white space here. This didn't fill in all the way. So there's actually a couple different ways of fixing this. The first is that you can go up here to your threshold and you can kind of play around with it until it fills it in. But sometimes when you have a lot of curves and stuff like that, even increasing your threshold won't work. Sometimes you'll move your threshold all the way up and it just won't fill in at all. So in order to fix this, we can actually use our nodes. We can scroll in here very close. We can grab this node and we can kind of pull it out to fill in that space. Now, one thing you'll notice is that when I'm pulling this purple over, it's actually covering up the black line. That's because whatever you do in Inkscape, whatever the last thing is that you did is always going to be the top layer. We don't want that here. We actually want this line to be on top and we want to be able to pull this purple over so that it's behind this black line. So as this object is selected, I can go to my selection tool and I can just click this button to move it all the way to the back. And now as you see, this line is the top layer and the fill is the back layer. Now we can take these nodes and we can just kind of pull them back behind the line like that. And as you can see, it got rid of that white space. You know, right here, we can use this little bar and kind of move it around until it's perfectly hidden. Maybe just slide this over slightly, you know, something like that. And then when we go all the way to the bottom here, you know, we'll probably have a couple more. You can see that this didn't go all the way to the corner. We can just kind of grab this node and pull it down. So there are going to be times when you do fills and you are going to have to use your nodes to kind of go in and finely tune the fill. Another place where nodes are very useful is, let's say I have a picture here and I want to get a perfect outline of this object so that I can go back and redraw this. But I wanted to use this as sort of a light table, and that's kind of what I've done here. You can pull a picture into it and you can get an outline by basically drawing around the outside of this object. But as you can see, this object has some rounded corners and stuff. So we're going to have to use our nodes to kind of make sure that we get a perfect shape around the outside of this object. So let's begin by starting here in the bottom corner and drawing this straight line. We will go to the next corner. And as you can see now, I need to move this line to go around and match this shape. There's still a little bit of yellow here. It's not perfect. So now I can click on this node and use this little bar to kind of get the perfect shape of the outline of that. So real quickly, let's just go ahead and finish the outline of this object. So now that I have traced out this object, we can pull our picture away, and as you can see, I have a perfect outline of this object. Now I can go back in here and I can redraw all these lines and do my coloring and my fills and stuff and kind of make it my own. So that's one place where nodes are very useful. You can use it to outline certain objects. You can use this kind of as a light table, and you can get these very exact outlines of objects. Another place where drawing these outlines can be very useful is, let's say you have a client who brings you this picture and he doesn't like this background. He wants just the glass of beer, but he doesn't necessarily want this background attached to it. The way to do that is to first start off by drawing an outline around the object that you want to save. Then Inkscape has a very useful tool in it called the set clip. So in order to use the set clip, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to select both your outline and your photo. You can do that by either holding down the left trigger and scrolling across both items, or you can select your outline, then hold down the shift button and select the photo, and that selects both of them. Once you've done this, you can go right here under Object, Clip, Set, and as you can see, it has now cut out this image based on the outline I drew around it. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is that once you have both of these selected, you can simply just right click and go right here to Set Clip, and it will do the same thing. Now, a quick disclaimer I have to add in this video is be very careful if you're going out on the internet and clipping people's artwork. You know, if you clip something that is very recognizable and you use it in your project, you know, you could get in a lot of trouble for it. So definitely be aware of copyright laws, what you are clipping. Make sure it's nothing that is easily recognizable or something that is copyrighted, or you could possibly get in a lot of trouble for using this tool. The last thing that I kind of wanted to show you with the set clip tool is, let's say you're doing a background like this, a 1920 by 1080 background. As you can see here, I have three separate objects. I have my gray background and I have these two lines. And what I want to do is I want to trace around this outline of this background, and I just want to cut off the extra on these purple lines. One thing to be aware of whenever you are doing this is that all three of these objects have to be grouped together. You cannot set clip it while they are all separate. So in order to do this, what you want to do is scroll across all three of them. You can either go to Object, Group, or you can right click and there is a group and ungroup here as well. But anytime you have several different objects like this, they all have to be grouped together before you can set clip them. Now that we have these together, I can go in here and I can kind of draw a outline around my 1920 by 1080 backgrounds like so. Then once I have that done, I can select both the object and my outline, go to Object, Clip, Set, and now you can see it has perfectly cut off these lines around the edges. I didn't have to go in here and try to draw these out perfectly. So that's just kind of a cool, easy way to do fun designs like this in your backgrounds. But the one thing I did want to make you aware of is that all of these objects have to be grouped together before you can use the Set Clip tool. So that's just kind of a basic overview of nodes. Now, obviously, there's a ton that you can do with these. You're going to have to kind of just get in and start playing around with them and get a feel for how they work in order to really get good at using them. But I thought I would just make a full video kind of explaining nodes because I do use them a lot in my projects. You know, I don't always just want squares and circles. I want to come up with my own shapes as well. And so that's how I do it. The Set Clip tool, which is also a very important tool that I use a lot as well. I will be using it in some of our projects going forward, so I did want to make you guys aware of that as well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you would, please leave likes or comments down below, or if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm always glad to help. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next video.